Welcome to the Album Anniversary Podcast. Today's show is about Liver by Steve Taylor. Per Jesus Freak Hideout, it was released May 23rd, 1995, so it is celebrating a 30-year anniversary.
Lancaster, that was the most beautiful rendition of Kumbaya I've ever heard in my life.
Hi, I'm your host, Caleb, or Caleb the Spy on social media, and every day on social media I post about what I call album anniversaries. So, on the Album Anniversary Podcast, we take a look at a classic album, an album we love, or an album that's important to us on the anniversary of its release date. Albums on the show do often focus on alternative rock, punk, and my strange obsession with ska. In the 90s, I was super into the Christian music scene, and this is an album that's right in the middle of that, and it comes up often on the show. Today, I'm joined once again by, I think, my most frequent guest, Scott. Scott, welcome back to the show.
Caleb, I can only assume I'm back because every time I'm on, you get the highest amount of clicks and listens. So you're welcome. And thank you for having me on.
Listener, don't tell him. It's just because he was the first one to see the spreadsheet, so he signed up for all the most.
I did. I took them all. I'm greedy.
All joking aside, it's great to have you back. I feel like we've been doing this now a year and a half. We've been working on podcast stuff together, so I'm always happy to have you. And I think our musical journey is so intertwined, but yet has like different things, because there's different things you've gotten into and I've gotten into, you know, that it's a pretty easy conversation with you. So I'm always happy to have you on the show.
Well, thank you. I think we've also been working on our friendship journey for like 20 years, 25,
more
30
than
years.
20. Jeepers. Goes back to about the time this album came out,
30
actually.
years ago. That's true.
Yeah.
We will talk about how foundational Steve Taylor is to our friendship and most of our life.
You've brought it up, and I know it's going to come up later, but like this is Steve Taylor's your first concert, right?
100%.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's pretty cool that, you know, you can label. I want to say mine is Newsboys, but I don't think it is. I cannot nail down my first concert, which I feel a little sad about.
Well, if the listener remembers my story, I was living overseas until I was 14. And so like, it wasn't back then. I wasn't going to go to there were no shows I would go to in Western Europe. That's not a thing. And so I was kind of getting into music, of course, by that time, but there's no way I was ever going to see someone live. But, you know, soon thereafter, when I moved back, it was like, yeah, if we got a chance to go to a show, we're going. It was fun.
Yep.
It was great. It will always be a foundational memory for me.
And our youth pastor took us. I mean, so that's pretty cool that we get, you know, our youth pastor took us to this rock show. It was at Concordia College. I remember that because I was just at Concordia College last weekend, which was pretty hilarious.
That concert is the first and only time I've ever been inside a Concordia College.
Oh, really? Yeah, it's a funny building. If we get into, man, why do we get into Minnesota geography so much on the show?
Right.
Everyone's
it is
like,
yes, Concordia.
Yeah, it's a funny little college because it's in the middle of the city, and so it literally is like a couple buildings. They've got more stuff now. They got a football stadium and other things, but it's kind of a weird setup. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, but anyway, yeah, I was there literally last weekend to go to the state robotics tournament. So they did not have enough seating. It was not comfortable. We had to stand for 8 hours.
Robotics is popular.
Yeah, I guess. I don't know. All right, well, that's our little bit of intro, and I think we both have plenty to say. So I say we dive in and tackle this album.
Okay.
We're talking about Liver by Steve Taylor, again, released May 23rd, 1995. I got that from Jesus Freak Hideout. They're pretty reliable. I find most of their stuff to be pretty accurate. I've found some that are different, but I can't find it anywhere else. So I'm going with that release date, May 23rd, 1995. So celebrating a 30-year anniversary. This is, you may not know this is actually Steve Taylor's second live album. The first one came out in 1986. It only contained 8 songs, and it's only available on cassette and LP on vinyl.
Oh
and
my.
I'm trying to find a cheap version on vinyl, and I have been unable to do so for a good quality one. I've found some really bad quality ones, but I don't want to pay for that.
I'm amazed it's still even out there. That's awesome.
Yeah, it's available on Discogs and eBay. You can look it up. Again, it's called Limelight is the name of it. I've been trying to track down a copy of it, and I just have not been fortunate enough to get one that's been a reasonable deal. So I'm still in the hunt for Limelight by Steve Taylor. And what is it? It's when he had that other band. What's it called? Some band. So it's Steve Taylor and Some Band is what it is.
Maybe by next year's birthday, I'll find it for you.
Yeah, I mean, it's easy to find. It's just a good copy that's high quality, but
good quality.
Not
Gotcha.
good quality, but not totally ridiculously expensive is the issue.
Gotcha.
This album, the one we're talking about, not the old one, did have one single, and it was On the Fritz, which we'll obviously talk about at some point. So I thought that was interesting. I don't know where that got played, to be totally honest. Christian radio. Maybe a little. There's some alternative station out there. I don't think there was a video, but I did find that there was one single released.
Mm-hmm.
It was produced by Russ Long and Steve Taylor. Now, Russ Long is mostly a mixing engineer and a producer in the Nashville music scene. His credits include Wilco, Dolly Parton, Sixpence, which has a Steve Taylor connection, obviously, later in their career and in Steve Taylor's career, Amy Grant, Jim Brickman, and the Newsboys, which also has another Steve Taylor connection. So Russ Long has been around a while. Obviously, Steve Taylor helped with this. Anything on Russ?
No, it's just a magnificent list. Like, I think about how much these bands were influential. We take for granted the stuff that happens behind the scenes and the amount of people that are making it happen. But when it comes back to a guy like Steve Taylor or Russ Long, like, they're influencing some very, very important albums during this time.
So, and it looks like the Sixpence None the Richer, that's the only one I looked up, looks like he was mostly involved with their self-titled album. That's the one that I see the most information about. Maybe other ones too, but the self-titled looks like the one that he was involved with.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have a ton of information about this. I'll be totally honest. There's just not a ton out there. But one thing that I did want to bring up is the band members, because this is a live album. So those folks get called out. So I'm going to try some last names. I apologize in advance because I just am the worst at last names. So Steve Taylor on vocals, obviously.
You got that one.
Yeah, I got that one. Oh boy, here we go. Last names. Wade Jaynes, I want to say. Jaynes on bass guitar.
I bet it's Jane's.
Jane's? Okay.
Sure.
Yep. That makes more sense. Yep. So he has an endless list of studio credits for CCM bands. I mean, just it's this huge list. And he was an important member of a band. I can never pronounce their name, so I'm going to call in some help here to pronounce this name. Give me a second.
Oh, good, because please don't call on me either.
Chagall Guevara.
That was Brock helping me out. Chagall Guevara. I don't know if anybody can actually hear it in the microphone.
No, they can't.
They can't? Oh, it maybe my Audacity picked it up, but you're zoomed in. Chagall Guevara. So Wade was a part of Chagall Guevara. I am probably not saying it right, but Brock helped me hopefully say it close. So he is that's Wade. He was on bass. Chris Kearney. That's how I want to say that. Kearney.
Sure.
But Matt, why do you say Matt Kearney's name? I don't know how to say it. That's spelled slightly different. Anyway, he's on drums. I'll be honest, the only credit I see for him is Bash in the Code. I have no idea who that is. I've never heard of that before.
Nope.
So Chris was on drums. Here's one I'm not going to get wrong. Mark Lee Townsend. He is on guitars and background vocals. Mm-hmm. He is, if you know anything about Christian music, you probably know who Mark Lee Townsend is. Longtime guitarist for DC Talk. He is later gone on to be an engineer and a mixer and a producer. he worked heavily with Reliant K and tons of other CCM bands, especially for Goatee Records. So a lot of the rock-related albums that Goatee Records put out, he put out. He lives in Nashville. He is still active in the scene, still helping out, doing production stuff. He has been on Church Jams Now a couple times, and I know I always kind of give plugs for their show, even though they have 1,000 times more listeners than I do. But he has done a couple great interviews with them. Absolutely heartwarming interviews, just great stories. So Mark Lee Townsend on guitar. Mark Lee Townsend also was in Zilch. That's another thing that I think people might know him from. And then he does have a new solo record out that came out the last couple years. I think it came out kind of after COVID. I can't remember the whole story behind it. He goes into it on Church Jams Now, but it's an interesting listen as well. So he does have a solo record that he put out relatively recently, and it really chronicles the life of his father, I think is what it's kind of based around. Nice. So there you go. There's Mark Lee Townsend. And then last is, man, here we go. And one more fun last name for me to mess up. Greg Woolen is what I want to say. Wollan, guitar and vocals. And honestly, not a whole lot of other credits. I think this was about it. So that's kind of the backup band for this. Anything to add on any of those folks?
I just feel like when you're making this list, it's like the late 90s, early 2000s. Like, remember when... I'm going to make a sports ball reference. Remember when there was like
sports ball.
Don't be intimidated.
I'm out.
Remember when there was like the Cowboys coaching tree, or like I suppose later on was it the Eagles coaching tree, something like that, where from one head coach, all of a sudden all these other like major players in the NFL came from Jimmy Johnson. All these other major players.
Bill Walsh, he was the 49ers one. So yeah, there's
going back even farther. Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly. So, like, you're listing all these names, and all of a sudden, this guy is doing this amazing thing, and this guy's been involved for forever, and this guy's really successful. Like, that's what I see. That's what I think of when I look at this list.
Yeah, I agree. I think it is. It's probably household names, especially if you are in, like, the Nashville CCM scene. My guess is these guys all knew each other or knew of each other. That's how these things get put together, right? I mean, it's not the same people that I think were on Squint. I think it's a new group. Maybe some of them were involved. Obviously, the bass player, and I already moved past it on my notes. Obviously, Wade, was a longtime collaborator with Steve, so he was definitely involved. And I don't know if Steve had met Mark Lee Townsend and kind of had seen him play with DC Talk and was like, "Hey, you should come play with us." But I think it is that sort of thing where these groups happen and you kind of all know each other from, oh, I know him from this, and get together.
Well, and maybe in reality at that point too, the Christian music scene was far smaller. Not to say that these were the only people to pick from, or they're less talented for that reason. Certainly not. And then the music on this live album certainly shows that they're not. They're very, very talented. But you're probably going to just grow up knowing the same people.
Yeah. And, Steve hadn't probably toured in a while before Squint came out, and then he toured for this. So maybe it also was just him trying to find the right group of touring musicians. And I don't know, maybe Greg was touring all the way back through Squint, and when Steve started touring after Squint came out, that Greg joined him. I do not know. But yes, I think it is one of those things where you kind of find that touring musician, and it's like, oh, well, he was great last tour. Bring him on this one, and you just kind of get used to the folks you have with you.
Yep.
So I want to call out a couple other things here, and if you don't know, I recently did a show on Steve Taylor on the Fritz, and if you've never heard of sockheaven.net, I am going to reference it the whole time. The whole show is going to be just a reference to sockheaven.net. So just be aware of almost every fact I pulled from this is from that. It is gone now because somebody quit paying the bills, but you can still find it on the Internet Archive. There's some snapshots of it, so you can still get to it through the Wayback Machine, and that is not like me being funny. It's actually called the Wayback Machine. And if you need help doing that, I can definitely help. Reach out, send me an email. I'll help you get connected to the Wayback Machine so you can look at old websites that are long gone. You can go back and look at Five Iron Frenzy's album, or Five Iron Frenzy's website, and what it looked at in 2002. It's fun times. Anyway, so Scott is totally confused. He's like, what are you talking about?
I understand that this is like a thing. I just didn't understand that you understood how to use it.
Yes, so I'm very advanced. I do work in IT.
True.
So I am going to reference that a ton. So just, I kind of wanted to throw that out there that unfortunately it is gone now, but you still can find it on the Internet Archives, and I'm going to make a bunch of references to that. So one of the first ones I wanted to call out is the title, because if you look at it, if you're going to read it and you're not familiar, you're going to say liver, because that's what it looks like. But I do really believe it is supposed to be said liver. That is what it is supposed to be. I've never heard him say it out loud.
Maybe it's like one of those Inception things. You just get to decide for yourself.
Yes. And he does say, so there's an old interview where he's like, I hate naming a record. It's the worst part of the process. So he was sitting one night trying to figure out what to name this thing, going through a long list of names, and nothing was quite striking me. And I was thinking about the word live, and it came, liver. How do you pronounce it? I don't care. Either way, it works. That's the beauty of it. And I must say, it's the most sure I've ever been of a title, for better or for worse. So that's how he came up with it. And he did say, he usually just kind of wimps out and just names the album after one of the songs. But this one he went with Liver.
It's funny, whenever I would talk about this album, and even tonight at the dinner table I was talking about with my wife, just kind of going over what we were going to do.
Sure.
And I think about it in my brain. I'm going to say it one way, and then it comes out my mouth the other. I can't decide.
And I totally, in the lead up to this, I totally said liver at one point. And I was like, well, what am I doing? I've always called this liver. So yeah. So Steve has also been on record saying he doesn't like live albums. Part of the reason why I don't like live albums is that most of them aren't really live albums. You do a concert, you get some audience on tape, maybe you keep the drums, but most everything else is replaced so that by the time they're done, or by the time you're done, you've got a studio album with a live soundtrack. So I think that is part of the it's interesting that he's never really liked live albums, but then he went in and he did this one, and he said he wanted to do one that wasn't cheating. And so his comment was, for better or worse, this is as live as it gets. I don't know if most people know that there is really no such thing as a live record these days, because of just about everything that you hear. Even in MTV Unplugged, everybody goes back into the studio and fixes things. And they really tried not to do that. They tried to do no overdubs. We recorded most of the shows on the tour, but picking the best performances from different nights seemed like cheating too. So we just went with one night's concert. So he didn't try and cheat this, and I know Five Iron cheated it, according to Steve's rules. They recorded 13 shows, and then they kind of picked the best performances. I think they kind of they did record a bunch of shows, but then I think they kind of went with hey, this is our best performance overall. Or maybe they only did one night, but I don't think they did, just because of the intro. So that is part of this, is that this is he tried to make this as live as possible. So that's kind of a cool aspect of this album.
May we have a slight quick discussion about live albums in general?
Sure.
According to sockheaven.net, when did Steve make these comments?
Oh, okay. I'll give them to you. So the first one about the name is from the spring of 1995. And then that one I just read about how it being live is from May of 1995.
Okay. So also 30 years ago. Right?
Yes, exactly.
See, back then, 30 years ago, it certainly would have been, putting together a live album almost certainly would have been that way and that difficult. I think it's different now. I've always loved live albums, always. Because you get different flair, you get a different recording of the song, you get different takes, you get different solos, that sort of thing. I've always loved live albums, and one of my favorite bands now, these days, is Goose, which is like a Fish, the second coming of Fish. I was never a Fish fan, which was kind of weird, but I've gotten into Goose very heavily, seen them 2 times now, hope to see them this summer, and they will record every show. And basically, by the time I've gotten home from the show, it's on Bandcamp. So the ability to record live music has gotten obviously way better. Everything's gotten way better, of course. But that's how they release their music, is they record every live show and throw it on Bandcamp. And then you can go look at the playlist and you're like, that sounds interesting. Or I was at that show, I want to buy it. It's literally up the night of or the morning after they've played. So they're not going in there and doing a bunch of overdubs and all that stuff. They've done it. They're good. They're good to go. No, they're a different type of band and everything. But they're just kind of a culmination for me of how much I love live music.
See, I wonder if that's, I mean, that though is part of their shtick. And I don't know if that it's become easier to like record live, but I do think you listen to a lot of live albums and it's doctored. Like it's been doctored up. Now, there are probably, you know, the jam bands, yeah, they're definitely not doing that. And I think though, maybe the thing that makes it trickier to do live music, maybe the thing that was trickier to do it live back then was because it was all analog. And so you had to go in and do all the overdubs where like now the ability to record digitally means that in post you can go in and like, ooh, this bass line was way too was way too high. And so it's easier to mix it really, really quickly. So I wonder if it's not so much the ability to record it, it's just the ability to manipulate it quickly and to like do enough little touch-ups to make it nice. But like I do bet you that a lot of like the huge live albums are touched up a fair amount because you can, and so I bet you people do it. But it sounds like that Goose Band though, that's kind of their thing, and so you know you're buying it for that experience.
Oh yeah. And they, they're doing the waterfall thing. They're releasing singles on the tour and then putting them on an album later, all that stuff. And maybe they know like, oh, this didn't sound right in the concert, and they make a note and they know exactly the time, where in the song, all that stuff. I'm just saying, like, it's my first concert. It was my first live album that I bought. Like, I've always loved live music in a recorded form. Like, I'll take it every time. I think it's super fun.
See, I don't know if this is my first live album. We'll get to it in a second. Like, yep. I don't know if I have like an affection for live albums. I think sometimes they sound really muddy, and like you don't get the clarity of an album. And so like I think what I like it for is the antics in between songs. Like that's probably like something that attracts me to like live records is like seeing the band's banter. I think so much to the point, like, so Steve and Five Iron have set me up to like expect the banter, that I saw a band a couple of years ago and like the banter in between songs was really bad. Like it just was like not funny. You could barely hear it. And I was like, what's going on here? And I was like so disappointed. I was like, oh, I was like, I think you guys should just stick to play the song, tune your guitar, play the next song. Like the talking isn't helping the experience, guys.
Well, I don't get this on Liver, so I think we're fine. But
yeah,
it was just, it's always for me my first introduction to that medium.
Yeah, I've only covered two. This is only the second live album I've ever covered on the show, and I can't imagine I'll cover too many more, to be totally honest. So obviously, this is
when you want to cover Goose, just call me.
I've never even heard of him.
You know what? I'm leaving.
He's out. All right. Well, I'm going to pick up the pieces from the show and just see if I can finish it.
Enough to stay afloat, but not so much I run the boat. I'm glad there's something down my throat.
Well, I convinced Scott to come back to answer some of these questions, so we'll dive into our questions here. Scott, I think I know the answer, but how did you discover this album?
First of all, you didn't convince me to come back. It's not like I was like, no, Caleb, I don't want to do this. Please stop bothering.
I had to call him. I had to convince him. I offended him with my not love of Goose.
Stop bothering me. No, I was super excited to get a chance to do this. So we've talked about it a little bit, but I don't know where and when or how I heard about it. I just knew that I knew it was coming out, and Squint was and is a formative record for my life. And I was re-listening to it this week because I wanted to kind of just get prepared for this conversation, remembered how, again, significant it was for me. And then, again, to have gone to the concert, to know that a live album was coming out, I was just like, I had to get it immediately.
Yeah, I think we knew this was coming. So Squint's released in 1993, which puts me as an 8th grader, I want to say. Because I think I started high school in 94. So my guess is it's right around then that I get introduced to this, because John is my introduction to Steve Taylor, our youth pastor. He introduced us, and I think he was a fan from, back in the 80s, and he was like, oh, he's playing at Sunshine. You guys should go check him out. And I think we did, and we were like, oh, this guy's great. And so that was my introduction to it. So I had Squint. I was in on Steve Taylor. And so I don't know if we knew this was coming because of like Seven Ball or the Christian, but I feel like I was anticipating. I feel like this was a early buy for me, that I had this week 1 or really soon after that. So I think we were anticipating it because we had heard it was coming out, and I think we were all in love with Squint. Again, that Squint album is a really important one to me because it shows me that there's more out there in the Christian scene than Petra and Whiteheart and Jeff Moore in the Distance. Why, when you're on the show, do I rip on Jeff Moore in the Distance? I am so sorry.
No, you're not.
I'm not at all. But there was so much more than those things. And so that Squint album is like the eye opener. And then this is like an explosion of awesomeness into our lives. So yeah, I think I was ready for this day, if not day one, pretty soon after it came out. Definitely within a month or so.
Oh yeah, we were both very, very ready for it. Was this recorded on the same tour that we saw them on?
I don't think so. I think it was later. I know there's the comment at the beginning. It says, "Welcome to the Squinter. Since this is the Squinter National Tour, we thought it was important that we came to." And then he lists off a whole bunch of the cities. Yeah. At the end of that, he says that's the most beautiful rendition of. I think I can't remember. That's the most beautiful rendition of Kumbaya I've ever heard. Ryan has always stated that was an outtake from the Sunshine performance. That's where he said that they were, before they got on stage, they were singing Kumbaya. And that's when he said that. I don't remember that, but I don't think Ryan made that up. So I think that might be our little connection to it, is that potentially the Kumbaya was a Sunshine Music Festival reference.
Yeah, either way, because we'd seen him live and we were both very ready for this.
How many times do you think you saw him in the mid-90s?
Oh, gosh. Concordia, Sunshine, 3, maybe 4?
Yeah, I want to say 4.
Yeah.
I think I saw him Concordia, Sunshine twice, maybe. And then I feel like we saw him one other time. Although I
couldn't tell you where it was.
Yeah, I want to say the New Union, but he might have been too big for the New Union.
There's no way he would have gone in that small space. No way.
Yeah, so I don't think it was there. So maybe it was only 3. Maybe it was just Concordia and then Sunshine twice. But he
was too popular and also too tall, because
that
ceiling was very short.
What's really interesting, and I did not realize this, but he was playing shows. There's, again, sockheaven.net has like a whole bunch of bootlegs. It has a little bootleg section, and one of them is like a 2003 or 2000, I think it's 2003 performance at Cornerstone. And I was like, whoa, I didn't realize he was still playing in 2003. I thought he had kind of hung it up and was mostly focused on Squint. So maybe it was just a special performance, it wasn't a tour related, but it was just a special performance. But performing into the early 2000s, and then obviously came back with Steve Taylor and the Perfect Foil, and I think toured a little bit with them.
Right.
Let's move on to the next question. The big one. What is it that you love about this album?
Dude. I'm just going to randomly start picking bullet points off my list. Like I said, first live album. Yep. And it really just connected. It introduced some songs I hadn't heard before of his. And then I was like, oh my gosh, these are awesome. I hadn't heard him. So it created in me a respect for his prior work, and then whatever else he might have been involved in. Helped me understand that he was much more than just a singer-songwriter. It was kind of my introduction of do you know how prolific this guy is and what he does? and how important he is to Christian music. I know there are a lot of important people. He's certainly up there. I always think of this Steve Taylor experience between Squint and Liver as kind of my like starting point of like, okay, I'm in on Christian music now. Like, this is significant for me. It's not cheesy. It's artistically enjoyable. I don't always know what he's talking about, so I'm going to go figure it out. And both of these albums are well, and you know, we're talking about Liver. I get it, but hard for me to separate the two sometimes. But it was very much a, hey, new songs by him, and they're very fun, and also live versions of songs that I love.
Yeah, and I think for me this is also a first live record. So I think there's something kind of magical about that for a kid who's discovering live music, who's discovering the scene, to kind of get to have seen him in concert, and then this comes out and you're kind of like, oh, this really does capture that experience. That's pretty amazing. I think I texted you today, like, there's some albums that I listen to so much that I put it on and I can still say a lot of the like little in between the song banter, because I listen to this so much that I just know it so clearly, and I can still sing along with it, and I know the little breakdown parts that they're going to do, and the yell at the end of On the Fritz, and like there's just all these things that just I didn't have to listen to this 100 times to write down notes, because it was so much a part of our 90s experience, our music experience. And so I think that is what like I love about it, that it's just it really does capture that live performance. It's really, really great. I think the musical performances are great on here. Now, granted, I'm not a musician. Maybe there's some flubs on here. Maybe there's some things they mess up, but it feels like a really, really tight band. You brought up the idea that it has a whole bunch of other things, or a whole bunch of songs from his whole career. And what I really love about it is these new renditions. Yeah. And it not only shows like his whole career, but it actually shows, like, in my opinion, how brilliant of a songwriter he is, that On the Fritz doesn't sound like it sounded on the Fritz. Jim Morrison's Grave sounds pretty similar. I Want to Be a Clone, though. It is such an updated version, and it sounds great. Both versions are great. There's that shows a talent in songwriting.
Oh yeah, no, his ability comes through very clearly on this album. Not only his ability to sing, but his songwriting. I've always loved Steve Taylor lyrics, always. Yeah, and it's almost for me the kind of segue into the other bands that we love that are heavily lyrically significant. Yep. Black Eyed Siva, obviously Five Iron. Like, there are a lot of these bands that were kind of changing us during that time, and I've always loved the fact that he was able to weave together a song perfectly rhymed with words you weren't expecting that had a spiritual significance that wasn't clear. You needed to kind of go figure it out and listen to it. Yeah. Also, too, far less significant but still important to me was the fact that that album was like in a cardboard paper cover thing with a plastic flippy on it, and it was always different from all my other albums. Yeah. So I knew exactly how to, pick it off, and I didn't want to break the CD because I thought it wasn't a plastic case. But dude, if that album was a cassette tape, I would have broke the tape. I think so. I listened to this so much.
You talk about the songwriting, right? Like that ability to be satirical, that ability to be funny, that ability to be serious, the ability to be personal and tell a story. There are moments of all of those are captured on this. And I think that's pretty amazing that they took this collection of songs, and it's only 10 songs long. That is my only complaint, is I kind of wish it was 20 songs. That's my only complaint. But even that, the fact that not every song is on here, that like, how great would it be if the Moshing Floor was on here? I think that'd be a great addition. Yeah. How great would it be if Cash Cow was on here? I think that'd be a great addition.
Did they ever do that live?
I swear, I saw it live.
We probably did see it live at Sunshine.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right.
And
you're
it's like more of an abbreviated version. They go a little faster through it, but like,
right.
how great would it be to those to be on there? It would be fantastic. But this kind of makes it special that it's just these 10 songs. So even that is like a unique choice. You look at a lot of live albums and it's like 25 songs. I mean, they really pack it in. And instead, they kind of made this really focused, and it kind of makes it really special.
Yeah, 100%. Quick shout out to Cash Cow. I know this is off topic. I just tonight drove my son to and from youth group, and it's a little bit of a haul. It's like 20, 25 minutes. And I played Cash Cow for him, and I tried to talk to him about how money can be an idol kind of thing. He was like, Dad, what is this? But I just want everyone out there to know that the message and the music still persists to this day.
I will shout out my kids. My kids love the Cash Cow song. They think it's great.
They should. It's awesome.
I'll be like, oh, it's Steve Taylor. And all of them go, Cash Cow. So I've played that enough around them that they can like sing along to it. They're like, he uses the word bovine in a song. Yeah. How incredible is that?
Amazing.
On to our third question then. Why is this something that's so important for you, or something that holds up to this day, 30 years later?
When we do these shows, Caleb, like...
Yeah, we do these shows.
We do these shows by re-listening to the album and trying to evaluate the music, but also getting to that point of memory where we're like, what do I remember about hearing this 25, 30, whatever, years later? I can still pop this in and be like, this is super fun. This is enjoyable. It stands the test of time to me. And I've mentioned earlier that was my first live album, and I was really just getting into music at that time. And I think Steve and his band and his music was really kind of this ushering in. But also, too, listening to those updated versions of the songs like you talked about and that sort of thing helped me to respect and realize like there was a bunch of stuff that was happening that came before me that I had no idea about.
Yep.
And even to this day, I don't know about it. And certainly when I was, 16 years old, I didn't respect it or know about it, but at least I had the idea of like, hey, this has been going on for a while. Therefore, there's been Christians who are making good music that's been happening for a while. And I think that this album really represented that for me.
Yeah. And we kind of touched on it a little bit before, but again, it's 10 songs, and I'm going to count here. This is really exciting radio. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 6 of them are not on Squint. Going into this album, for you and I'm going to make an assumption, and you tell me if I'm wrong. We knew Squint, and we knew Lifeboat, because John liked playing that song. I don't know why. Because I think he liked the point of it. That was it. That was all I knew of Steve Taylor going into this album.
Yep.
It isn't till after this album that I go back and buy a greatest hits album. It isn't till after this album that I go back and I buy everything from his 80s output, his 4 albums from the 80s. It isn't till after this that I go back and I have to get Brock's recording again, and I find out that he's got this whole other band called Chagall Guevara. I'm going to play that every time because I can never say it right. It's not till after all of that. And it isn't until this album, because I think that is the beauty of this album. That is why he took what I think he was kind of a hot thing at the moment in CCM at 90. He kind of came back onto the scene. He had done the Newsboys thing. He had helped them out. And then he comes back and he puts out Squint. And it's for us, it's huge. I mean, I think he's main stage at Sunshine. So he's obviously, you know, we made the comment, we don't think he could have played the New Union because he just wouldn't have been, we'd have been too popular. Nope. And he introduced a whole new generation of us to his old music. And that old music is just important to me as Squint. Maybe not as Squint's pretty important to me. And this album's pretty important to me. But like, that was pretty amazing to kind of be able to go back and rediscover or discover those things. And again, we talked about it, like how malleable are those songs? The idea that he could take those and he could take these new wave punky songs and be like, hey, grunge is the thing right now. Alternative rock is the thing right now.
Let's do it.
Let's update them and make them even better. Maybe. I mean, I think the versions on this album are as good as it gets. On the Fritz is good no matter what. That is, I think it's my favorite Steve Taylor song, and it's good no matter what, but this version is amazing, and there's a reason they released it as a single. Yeah, agreed. That's
a really good point, is like, it connects you forward and back.
Yep. And we've talked about, I think you and I have talked about, I know I've talked about it a lot, the thing that Christian music is the worst at is looking back. Christian music does it for crap. Like, right. It's sad. It's sad to me that we got into the Christian music scene and we were deep into the Christian music scene. How often did you hear Adam Again talked about? Like, I just didn't. I'd occasionally see the name in Seven Ball, but no bands were talking about them. Like, bands were just not talking about the bands that were important to them, the Christian bands. Again, it was this, let's look at the secular world, and I sound like I'm on Arrested Development. Teach me the ways of the secular world.
Wow, nice reference.
I don't know if I can keep that in the show.
Why not?
Oh, it's so funny.
Best show ever.
So, you know, they're so concerned with what are the other secular bands I sound like, instead of being like, hey, you know, Adam Again was really important. The 77s, look what they were doing. Steve Taylor in the 80s, look what he was doing. Those things just didn't get talked about, and I think it's a real bummer. And this is my first exposure to, there was something before Beyond Belief by Petra.
Right. And Jeff Moore in the Distance.
Jeff Moore home run.
I think that's an amazing, a little aggressive, but I think it's a really good take on the fact that, you know, we weren't fed that information. Like, hey, if you like this Squint album, hey, maybe go back and check out some of these other guys, because there was no narrative of that. Yep. It was almost like, hey, we just got to make sure they're completely engaged with what's current, which is all well and good. But, you know, I think of like my brother-in-law and a few other people who basically for most of their life have enjoyed the Beatles and, you know, Neil Young. Like, that's his jam, not the modern stuff. And I just don't know if we were really ever given that chance, or if we just had access to it. It might have been an access issue too.
And maybe that is it's a lack of internet thing, that the internet age has kind of spoiled us in the ability to go do research. Because I'm covering an album coming up soon, the album Kush by Kush. And that's one that, seriously, dude, I didn't realize existed until about 5 years ago. And like, that's an amazing album from amazing artists that I absolutely love. Although I was late on Michael Knott too. Congratulations to me. I'm late on everything. But, you know, we didn't catch it. I never came across our path in the 2000s. It wasn't until significantly later. And so maybe it's a symptom of Christian music. I don't know. Maybe there's no explanation outside of just lack of internet. Now we're so used to being able to look up everything that we look back at that time and be like, why didn't I hear about this? Because I had Seven Ball Magazine and CCM Magazine and eventually HM Magazine, and that was it. And there just wasn't enough resources.
I agree. But to me, Steve Taylor is the bridge.
Yeah, I agree. All right, let's talk about songs. This is gonna be hard not to talk about every song. I'm just not gonna. I'm not even
There's
gonna.
Only 10, Caleb.
Yeah. Okay. Well, if we end up talking about all of them, I apologize, everybody. We're gonna do it. So, what are some of your favorite songs? You just want to go track by track?
This is a theme for us, Caleb. Every time I come on, we're just going to talk about every song.
All right. Jim Morrison's Grave. Tell me.
Oh, man. Great intro. No, again, one of the songs that wasn't on Squint, but like,
Yeah.
it hit me instantly.
Yeah.
Like, just the first time I heard it, I'm like, this song kicks butt. Like, it's
Yeah.
great, you know? So, I love that they opened with it. Great opener, especially for a show. And I was like, where did this come from?
That's my exact note is like, what is this? Like,
Yeah.
like it's just, it comes out swinging. If you would have asked me, like, hey, he's putting out a live album, what do you think the first track is going to be? I would have totally gone with The Lament of Desmond R.J. Underwood Frederick IV. R.G.
You got the middle name messed up now.
Yeah, I am a moron. But like that's the song I would have picked.
Yeah.
And instead, you don't get that. That's not till the second track. Instead, we're going to start with this other song. And so it sets the tone for what you're going to hear. We're not just going to get, live versions of the 10 songs I just put out 2 years ago. Right. You're going to get something else.
Yep. Yeah, and not until I kind of went back and listened to the original did I fully appreciate the live version of this. But
yeah,
man, I just go back to, we've talked about it a couple times with some albums, being excited that they're coming out, listening to them, and then the satisfaction of the songs delivering on that excitement is something that is kind of lost in my youth, right? I just can't, I don't experience it that much anymore. But I distinctly remember hearing this song for the first time and being like, man, I love this so much.
Yep. And it's also a great, man, I'm not meaning to harp on Christian music today, but it's a great encapsulation of what I think we loved so much about, like, what made us go, Christian music is not necessarily corny. It's not necessarily like this generic thing, and why it was so much better. Because is this a Christian song? I don't think it is, in the sense of like, it's not like you got to repent and love Jesus, but it is talking about a topic from a Christian perspective. And it's this idea, he calls it a meditation on what Taylor calls the rock and roll myth of it's better to burn out than to fade away. Mm-hmm. So like he's talking about, like, I think he had heard about the idea that there's a nonstop party at Jim Morrison's grave. And he was like, is this really, this whole rock and roll myth and this whole rock and roll lifestyle? And I think it's kind of him, like, kind of meditating on some of those things, as at the time he was a rock star. I mean, he was a Christian rock star. And so, like, I think it's what makes Christian music of the time so interesting, that it's not just a straight worship song, but instead it's a song that is talking about things of this world from his perspective.
And you got to find the spiritual themes. Like, I've said this multiple times on our show about youth group and this show, like, give me something where I'm trying to find out what you're saying. Don't let the text be the text. It drives me insane. And Steve Taylor's lyrics were never that. It was just like telling a story, and then you're trying to find the spiritual meaning of the story because you trusted what he's trying to do, which was kind of convey a Christian message. It wasn't always blatant, and it wasn't always, completely 100% the gospel or whatever you'd want to say. But there were Christian spiritual aspects to it that I fully appreciated almost immediately because he's such a good lyricist.
Yep, absolutely. All right, so then we move on to the second track, The Lament of Desmond R.G. Underwood Frederick IV.
You got it.
I got it. I'm so good.
Yeah. Opener to Squint, so great second song here. But man, again, having been satisfied with the first song and then going right into one, which was just a kind of a great rockin' tune of one that I already loved, dude, it's just a great combo back in, 1-2 combo. I loved it.
It's possible that, like, really, really talented musical people would think about that opening riff and be like, it's just kind of a standard opening riff. Mm-hmm. But how much of, how ingrained in your love of music is that opening riff from that album? I think it's like, it's something that I feel in my bones when I hear that riff. I don't know what it is, because I think it's this transition away from Petra, and again, Petra's fine, but it's this transition. The Newsboys and Steve Taylor are that, like, it's okay to be a little weird. Alternative is good. You don't have to be a clone. We'll get to it in a second. Like it is, and that riff is something that I just, again, I can feel it do something to my soul. It's amazing. I am totally overselling it, but like it's something that's so has permeated my musical journey.
Yep. And again, not to go back to harp on the lyrics too much, but like the lyrics on this one were on Squint were always super effective to me. Yeah. You know, I'll be honest with you, Caleb. Like when I started listening to this, re-listening to this album, it was about the same time a close coworker of mine who's our age got diagnosed with very inoperable and aggressive cancer, and so the lyrics of "The News of My Impending Death" like hit me different. And you know, we're continuing to pray for and support the guy, and I don't know, maybe we'll throw up a GoFundMe in the notes or something, but it really clicked with me and connected back to how I was thinking about that subject back when I was 15 as opposed to now. And, you know, it kind of marks or shows that some of those lyrics are like, you know, super effective in no matter what era you're going to listen to them in. But man, he was talking about a spiritual aspect of, you know, figuring out that you're going to die, and you have, you know, how is that going to work out in your life? And I just really always loved the lyrics of that song, as well as just the like, all right, we're in that 90s rock grunge scene. Let's do this.
Yeah. And that's just another example of him being able to take a concept, take an idea, and communicate it. Whether, again, it's satirical, funny, poignant, just pure storytelling. Like he has the ability to do it in such a variety and so many different ways. And yeah, I think about being a 14, 15-year-old kid and hearing that song and just being like reading every last word and being like, whoa, this is deeper than Jeff Moore in the Distance. One more time for you, Jeff.
Sorry, Jeff.
Sorry,
G. But also too, it's I don't want to get too antagonistic about it, but it's just more spiritually significant to me than a worship song too. Like just because it's describing something rather than telling me what to think.
Yeah.
And I just always appreciated the way that he formed his lyrics and songs that way.
Yeah. I got to clear the air here. I'm sure Jeff Moore is a super guy. I don't know why I pick on him. I do know why I pick on him, because John played him all the time. And I was always just like, this is just, I think that is one of those things where it's like, it is this, I'm just going to say it, like, this doesn't feel corny. That felt corny. And it was for an audience. It was doing a thing. It's fine. I remember going to a Jeff Moore in the Distance concert at Sunshine because John wanted to go, and it was the nighttime. And so I think it was the other stages were closed. And we went, and I remember enjoying it. I totally remember enjoying it. So I pick on him relentlessly, apparently only when you're on the show, but I think that's what happens here. This feels cool. And like, not to transition to the next song, but like the next song is I Want to Be a Clone, which is this new wave song originally. And he takes it, and this version is so punk rock. Like, it's just, it's great. And I think that is the difference, is that doesn't feel corny. The concept could totally come off as corny. The idea that like, the church is an assembly line, and you could totally, if somebody in the wrong hands, that message is going to come off corny. It does not come off corny here. And it comes off really punk rock, and it's fantastic.
I think to your point about that, the type of music that Jeff Moore in the Distance was, as opposed to this, was that the through line we were talking about earlier, like Steve Taylor's earlier stuff, like it had those foundational pieces of punk rock and new and all that stuff you're talking about. Whereas like Jeff Moore in the Distance, it was just kind of founded in kind of that like adult contemporary stuff that was never going to translate to teenagers ever.
Yep.
I mean, maybe for a short amount of time, but it tells me, and it showed me, and I didn't really realize this when I was 14, 15, but it showed me that like what Steve Taylor was willing to do back in the 80s or whatever was lean into some secular stuff and take from it what was good and learn how to play it, learn how to produce it, and put it all together, and then translate that into something that was and like this, like you said, like punk rock here. without, as opposed to just like, hey, let's stay in the safe adult contemporary radio edit stuff that is, always uplifting. KTIS, always uplifting. Like, no, give me something that's challenging. Sorry, I go back to this all the time. Anyway, I've made my point.
Yeah, and it's a great update. I think this one, I Want to Be a Clone and On the Fritz are the most two updated versions.
Yeah.
Into kind of like from that old style. Again, I absolutely love both of them, but again, it shows that talent to be able to take a song and rework it and have both versions work, and to have this one feel fresh and new, and again, just feels totally punk rock.
Yeah, and it's such a great live version of this song.
Yeah.
I mean, again, sometimes I think of albums in terms of like baseball lineups. Like, give me this as your number 3 hitter all day long. Perfect.
Yep. Yeah. Oh, and it's number 3 on the track list. Wow.
Yeah, that's what I meant, Caleb.
Sports ball. So the fourth track, then the cleanup hitter of this album is Escher's World, and I have to say it. This is 4 songs in, and we've got 3 of them have been callbacks to older albums, and we have one more to go before you kind of get a couple of them or we only get one. But so this is again, of the first 4 tracks, this is another callback. I think this one is I'm gonna do it without Brock. Chagall Guevara. I just totally messed it up. I think I messed it up. Oh,
Guevara,
Brock, help me.
Yeah,
Anyway, so yes, Escher's World is the next song. Again, this is another callback to. This was another one that was totally new to me, and I don't know. It's such a catchy song. It's I really love this song. It just feels happy. I don't know. There's something just so light about this version of it, and so airy. It's just another great song, in my opinion.
It's an effervescent song. Like, you just
effervescent. Nice word.
Thank you.
Yeah.
But you get super uplifted just by the music of it.
Yeah.
I actually have no idea what it's talking about, and maybe I should look into it more, but
I tried.
Sockhaven.net.
Sockhaven.net doesn't have anything. No interview quotes, no references. So I tried to read the lyrics. No. Does Brock have anything? No, he just tells me how to say the name right.
How about Josh? Somebody help us. Anybody?
Josh Balog, if you know what the meaning of that is. Yeah, when you go to sockhaven.net, sorry if there's clicking in the background. I know, not a professional show. Let me see. Yeah, it's just got the lyrics, and there's no real call out to what it is. What it's about. So, and I will say, let's see if I can get it right again. Chagall. Oh man, see. Chagall Guevara. Man, I'm the stupidest person in the world. That was an attempt to kind of push into mainstream rock music. Like, it didn't land as much as I think they wanted it to. This is some of the history, and if I have that wrong, I apologize. But I think they were trying to push into it a little less, and they weren't writing this for the Christian market. I think they were trying to something that could be a little more mainstream. So it may not have much more of an idea than just these phrases work. Did you ever chase your tail through a maze of exit doors? I have seen the light of Braille. I have blazed the road before us. We're walking in Escher's World again. Rise up, you nimble-minded men. I don't know if it has any strong meaning outside of it's just very, very poetic and effervescent. Great word.
Well, like, I'm assuming it's some sort of reference to M.C. Escher, the painter and artist.
Oh, yeah, that's right. That's the stair thing, right?
Yeah, who did the stairs and the mazes and all that kind of stuff. I just don't know how it connects. Anyway,
yeah.
I mean, still, the song itself was just super fun and, again, satisfying, just like Jim Morrison's Grave at the beginning. Song I hadn't heard, and maybe they updated a little bit, and it just clicked. I'm like, man, so much fun. I didn't even know this song by Steve Taylor, and it's still so much fun.
Birds roar, lions soar, sheep are cruel, snails pace, papers chase, midgets rule, stuffed shirts, Ethel Mertz, we ain't foolin', socks hop, lemons drop, butters fly, tough wimps, satyr shrimps, majors rise, pips squeak, windows peak. Are you surprised? No idea what we're talking about.
Another sock reference, though.
Yeah, Sock
Yeah,
Heaven.
this thing about socks.
Shout out Sock Heaven. All right. Next song is, I'll say it, my favorite track.
Ooh.
I'm torn because we'll get into what might be my favorite song, but On the Fritz might be my favorite song by him. Anyway, great song.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I think my response when I first heard this was, where did this come from?
Yeah, exactly. It just knocks it out of the park.
Yeah. This epic build and the huge, amazing 90s alt rock breakdown at the end, the emotion behind it. Absolutely fantastic. I mean, what a great recreation to take that, what is a great song on the Fritz. I mean, this is a great song back in the 80s, but to put this out, it's 6.5 minutes. It feels epic. It's absolutely fantastic.
But think about how it's placed in the album. And if you're thinking about it in terms of the show, like, think about how great it is that Steve Taylor and his band, they're like going between these genres, you know, not maybe super intentionally or whatever, but like they're just able to do all these different types of songs. We just talked about, you know, Escher's World being so kind of poppy and happy and, you know, drawing you in with that positivity just by the music alone. Yeah. And then you go right into this like kind of heavy bass driven intro. And like, but they're able to pull it off, and then they're going to go right into Bannerman, which is kind of swing back up the other way. And 2 songs ago, we were having some punk fun. So like, they're really showing off their talent here.
Yeah, just the build up to this, like it doesn't rush into it. It just lets the bass line drive, and you get the crowd in the background going on the Fritz. You know, I mean, it's just absolutely fantastic. And that guitar solo is perfectly placed. It's I know I'm a punk rock guy and I want my 3-minute songs, but for a 6-minute song, it's pretty perfect in my opinion. Should we talk about Bannerman?
Sure.
All right. So this is a Squint callback. So now we've had 2 Squint songs because there's only 4 of them. But I don't know. This is, like you said, this is so fun. It's a little bit of lightheartedness. I think the moshing floor would have also worked here. Oh, that maybe would have been too serious. But I would have loved to have the moshing floor on this album. Yeah. Anyway, this is the second time we've lamented that.
11th track.
But yeah, Bannerman, and this is where he flexes some of his funny chops, right? Like, you know, it's that kind of humorous take on something that he is able to tell a story, and it's this fun poke at something, you know, the buffalo snow freezing his little epidermis. I mean, that line just great. So
rhymed with thermos.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah. No, I mean, I think this song itself is an illustration of what Steve Taylor and his band were able to do, which was to tell a spiritual story and not so much, you know, spiritual terms. Yep. Just as the intro to the song, you know, he wanted people to, you know, he wanted to share a story about someone telling someone else about Jesus. We're all for that kind of thing. And it's always just kind of been this fun song about maybe how someone would do that, but also too in a non like antagonistic way or whatever. You're just holding up a sign, and the song is almost like, you know what? If you hold up a sign with the verse, that verse is going to do its job on its own. And sometimes maybe that's all you have to do.
Yep. I think too, it's meant to, you know, paint the picture of, I don't know, maybe I'm reading way too much into it. I should see if Sock Heaven has interview quotes from it. But, you know, it just is the idea that like, yeah, this is valuable to tell people that I think it still is. There's a value in telling people, you know, even though I don't want to do the evangelical or the evangelism trips we used to do in youth group where we were dropped off at the mall and had to go evangelize to 5 people in an hour or whatever. But like, I still think there's a value in telling people that, you know, Jesus loves them and we love them too. And, you know, I think that's still a cool way of getting that message out there.
This is a throwback to conversations we've had about our youth pastor dropping us off in the Mall of America and saying, I want you to be back here at a certain time, and I want you to have talked to 5 people and tell them about Jesus. It's like, maybe we just should have walked around and held up signs that said John 3:16, and it basically would have done the same thing without causing us so much stress.
Mall of America. Not just a mall where you can kind of watch the one or two exits.
Yep.
Mall of America, where any of us could have disappeared in through any matter of speaking.
Back in the day.
Yeah. Let's move on to Hero. Again, this is, I did write down where all these are from. Hero is from this album, Meltdown. This song gives me the chills, man. It's just another, again, I'm so thankful to have been introduced to this because I hadn't heard it before this album. And this is just a chilling song in some ways.
Why does it give you the chills?
I don't know. There's just something about the mood of it. It's a very, very personal song for him. He's talking about this idea of it's essentially like your heroes are going to let you down, but Jesus is not. I mean, that is really the overarching theme, but there's just something about when they get talking at the end, the baseball cards, I think there's a baseball card reference at the end. And it is kind of this, one of these things where, the heroes that you have in your mind, they're going to let you down. And I don't know, it just paints such a picture. It feels very personal, and you don't get that always from him. And I think that's maybe why it feels so real.
I also really liked about that. For me, this song was also a song where I could identify hey, this dude can really sing. Sometimes I think of people that I've introduced him to or whatever, they think his voice is a little abrasive, which I don't always agree with. But I think this song shows that he can really belt out a tune, and it adds to the intensity and emotional severity of the song because he's really making it work, both lyrically and, just the way that he's singing it. Yeah,
absolutely. Eighth song on the album, going back to Squint for the next two. This one is Jesus is for Losers, and I don't know, this album probably pissed off a lot of people back in the 90s.
It cracks me up. It cracks me up so bad because it's the perfect illustration of what is wrong with Christian music. You're just looking at the title. You're not thinking about anything else. You're not even thinking about it theologically in any regard. You're just assuming that someone is making fun of you. That is the evangelical complex through and through. Okay, yeah. I'll be done with that. But it's... It bugged people because they just weren't willing to understand what he was trying to say, which is essentially, again, the gospel message. But, I do love the tone of this song. I think he struck it perfectly for the subject matter.
Yeah, I mean, this is the basic tenet of Christianity, right? That Jesus didn't come to heal the healthy. He came for the sick, and he came for, especially the idea of loser had such a... In 90s, you called people a loser and it meant something.
You put an L on your forehead.
Yeah, it just does. It doesn't probably mean the same thing. It does a nice Smash Mouth reference, by the way.
That's what it's going for.
But Beck had the song, "Loser." It was out. That was a buzzword of the 90s, and so it's leaning into that kind of cultural moment. But it is, to me, I think this is one of those things too, where 90s kid who didn't necessarily want to fit in, wanted to be alternative, wanted to be punk rock, wanted to be involved in Christian stuff. This made it okay it's okay, Caleb, you can be a loser. That's okay because that's what Jesus is for. This is one of those things that I think kind of stamps upon me as an important thing. I've become very okay being the loser, being the weirdo. Making fun of myself is something that is, if you know me at all, I'm about as self-deprecating as they come. And I think I can see that thumbprint or that fingerprint on my life and my musical taste.
And I think the live version of the song, right? Because it's coming off of his Squint album, of course. I think the live version of this song really conveys that message very powerfully because it is a heavy subject matter. It's not one we're going to make fun of or use the terminology flippantly. But I think the way that he sings it and the way the band kind of just slowly works through the song itself really impacts the message of it.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. I love it. I think it's probably the most famous song off of Squint, is my guess. That or Bannerman is probably the two. Yeah. But I know he took some heat for it, and thank God he did.
Just the dumbest thing, dude. Seriously, the dumbest thing.
I've got
I
you all
can't-
riled up on a Wednesday night.
I do. I'm not. It just. All right. I can't get into it. We're
Let's
already
get
going long.
into the finish line. then.
Patreon exclusive.
Patreon exclusive.
Scott rants.
How upset is Scott about people being upset about Jesus is for Losers?
Real quick, you can take this out. It's the same
Oh.
thing when Five Iron came out with the Cheeses album.
Yeah.
People didn't want it because they were offended by the title, not willing to. Whatever. I'm done. I'm
I
done
mean,
with it.
You can't take that album seriously to any of it.
Begin
so, like,
with.
I mean, it's like if you're going to be upset about that, then, you know.
Right.
All right. The finish line. One of my
We're-
notes about this.
We're
Oh,
not
what?
frustrated by the song. We just don't really have the words.
Yeah. This
We're
is my
trying to
favorite.
decide on the words.
I think this is my favorite song on this album.
Yeah, I would agree with you.
It's between this and On the Fritz for my favorite song, probably by him. There's something, I don't know, I want to say magical about this song. Like I love this song.
Mhm.
This is I've credited Steve Taylor with my love of epic closing songs.
Yeah.
So I kind of want this to be the closer,
Mm-hmm.
but I totally understand why they don't, because the way they close the album with the fire escape thing or the fire alarm going off, and so they're not going to play one more song. And
Yeah.
Violent Blue is a better closer if you're going to end the album with that little gag at the end as well.
Yeah.
But this is such an epic song. Again, how long is this thing? 5.5 minutes. Absolutely incredible. And this version is even better than the Squint version.
It
I think
is.
this is an upgrade,
Yep.
and it's so good.
It's so good, and it's really a culmination of what they've been doing for the whole show, quote unquote,
Yeah.
whether they clipped it all in or not. But again, the ability to go from kind of this upbeat the Bannerman song in the middle, and then Hero, Jesus for Losers, and Finish Line, like that's a really serious change in tone.
Yeah.
And we always go back to Fire Iron being such a influential band on us and having Every New Day as a closer and everything like that. It's obviously Finish Line is not up there as a closer. They didn't always end with it, that sort of thing. I do think it's in the same vein, though, of the seriousness of conveying the message of how much we need grace and how much we strive for things that just we ultimately cannot obtain ourselves in such a lyrically and musically powerful way. If they would have ended it here, great. But they don't, and it's also fine. But man, it is such a powerful tune.
And this is a song that means more to me as I run this race. Like, I'm tired, man. I am anxious. I can feel the weight of the world that I didn't feel at 15. Like, I was a pretty happy 15-year-old, 16-year-old. Like, yeah, I had some teenage angst, but like pretty comfortable life, pretty easy going. Friends I really loved, and felt like I was in a safe place at home and at church.
Mm-hmm.
And still, it affected me then, but like, I think this song affects me more now as an adult.
I would agree with you on that for sure.
So here's his quote on it: "The Finish Line is one of the only songs I've written that really affects me emotionally still, even when I hear it." And I think this is a quote from when it came out. I just think I got it right on that song. It's just the story of someone who runs the race. It's not like a steady uphill victory climb. It's not doing a victory march into heaven or something like that. It's run with blood and sweat and perseverance. The title for the album, Squint, actually came from a line in the Finish Line. Off in the distance, bloodied but wise, as you squint with the light of the truth in your eyes. We don't necessarily see the finish line really clearly in front of us. We have to sort of squint to see it. We're pretty sure it's there. It's not easy running this race."
Amen.
Yeah, I agree. All right. So that was a pretty serious moment. A little more lighthearted. Violent Blue closes out the album, and then the Fire Exit thing closes out the album. Again, another new song. Pretty pretty cool to kind of, I mean, again, new
Oh,
for
yeah.
us, wasn't new for others probably, but the new to us, they kind of close out the album with Violent Blue.
Dude, such a fun tune.
Yeah.
Seriously. You could have thrown this tune at any point in the album, but not to reiterate too much, but it's like, man, this is not him covering some random band song. Like, this is all his stuff. I love this song so much. It's so fun to me. It's such a not lighthearted. It's such a upbeat way to end the whole show. Like, I would have loved to end the show that way.
Yeah.
It was just so much fun to just like end it with all the lightheartedness of it.
See, I think what's really interesting is this actually highlights again, like kind of his ability to write these, to convey messages, because like it's a lighthearted musically song, but like it's actually a really serious song. So the quote I pulled from this is that I think it's a song about the death of idealism in a friend. That probably is a short of a description and accurate as I could give you. And then the person interviewing him asks, so it was about a specific person? And he's like, no, it was a composite of different friends and attitudes, but it seemed like it reflected a pretty wide and accurate view of idealists who had lost their way. So it's this, like, it is kind of like something that he's seen, like, as people have grown up, and like, it's interesting because like I'm not an idealist at all. I'm like this extreme pessimist. It's kind of become a joke at work actually amongst our team that like there's two of us that are the pessimists, and they're like, hey, we're feeling pretty good about this. Caleb, bring us down. And I'll give my like reasons why I'm not as optimistic. But so it's an interesting poke at that. But yes, it does feel whimsical. That's the word I wrote down.
Yeah.
But then you actually look at the lyrics and you're like,
word.
oh, it's not. He's talking about this thing that he's seen in his idealistic friends as they age.
I had effervescent. You had whimsical. Excellent words to describe those two songs.
And I don't even have dictionary.com open.
Congratulations. You did it.
Yeah.
No, I was, especially when I was re-listening to it, I forgot how much I appreciated that they put the song at the end, that this was just kind of like the, conclusion to what we've all gone through in the show. But to hear these themes of someone losing their idealism and everything like that tells me that, again, Steve Taylor, his band, they're thinking on a different level.
Yeah.
And I'm so thankful to have that experience and influence when we were of a malleable and influential age. Because it's, without saying so much, it told me, hey, continue to think deeper. So,
Yeah.
There's a lot in the song that I even missed, but, I still really enjoy it nonetheless.
Yep. And it's a great introduction to that band of the name that I can never get right. And it shows you how good that band was. It's a bummer they never hit the way I think they could have, because it's such a catchy song. And again, this playing with themes and lyrics, it's something a lot of people can't do, and they really nail it.
Yep, they really do.
Dealers got 'em off, welcome to the in it for the money is an idle show. When they ain't as big as life, when they ditch their second wife, where's a boy to go? Gotta be a hero. It's a nice boy notion that the real world's gonna destroy. It's a Marvel comic book Saturday matinee fairy tale boy.
All right. Well, now we've covered every song. So this has become a theme for when you're on the show. We're at like an hour and a half. We've pitched this album pretty
Sorry.
well, but no, that's fine. We're all good. If somebody has never checked this album out 30 years later, what are you going to tell them why they need to go back and check this album out?
I would say if you are interested in how Christian music became to be, I know a lot of times people think Christian music is lame, or they'll throw it off as like, Christian rock. It's just, no. There's plenty of mid-90s Christian rock, Christian music that is very good and holds up. And a lot of the reason is because of this dude and his band. Like, they are a through line to holding up a high high standard of lyricism and musical ability, as well as describing their spiritual life in one way or the other. And I do think it's a time capsule thing in terms of, you know, we were operating in a transition point, 93, 94, 95. But there's a lot that you can appreciate before that, and there's a lot you can appreciate after.
Yeah. I think it's just such a great introduction to Steve Taylor's music. Because if you're going to say, like, hey, what are 10 songs that you should go check out by Steve Taylor? I'm picking a lot of these songs because they're just great introductions. And so I think it's a really easy entry point into Steve Taylor because it's not too heavy. It's only 10 songs. It's only 43 minutes. It's not like a greatest hits album that you hand to somebody and it's 2 CDs and it's 140 minutes. I mean, it's a concise collection of some of his best songs. Are there songs that are not on here that could be on his best songs? Absolutely. But it's such a great entry point. And Steve Taylor is, I think, really important to the Christian music space. So if you're going to say you love Christian music, I think you have to acknowledge where he stands in the pantheon of Christian music. And especially if you're not into the straight pop stuff and you want something that's just a little bit different, Steve Taylor is just so important. And so I think it's a great introduction. And I think that's what I would tell somebody to go check it out. It's also just a great live album.
Oh yeah.
Super fun. Super easy.
Whoa, jinx.
Super fun. Somebody's got to say my name.
Yeah, that's right. I will extend that a little bit and say, like, spiritual influence or Christian influenced art too, because Steve Taylor does other things besides music. He's got a movie coming out pretty soon, and like it looks awesome. Like it's not a Christian movie. Like it doesn't look like a Christian movie per se. It just looks like a piece of art that has some spiritual influences. I'm sorry, Steve, if I'm speaking out of turn. I apologize, but I was really excited about the trailer. It's just like, if you want to know more about this guy and how artistically talented he is, you can listen to this live album and see him go from different types of music, different types of songs, while conveying a message, and musically being able to pull it off with ease. Sounds like to me easier said than done, but you know, in an enjoyable way. It's a really good piece of music for that time.
Yeah. And my last little pitch on this is just, I would say if somebody wants to get to know me better, like this is something I think I would tell people to go listen to. Like I've kind of started to see this pattern and theme in my life of, like, obviously if you want to get to know me better, you've got to at least, like, if you want to know where I'm at musically, like it's Five Iron Frenzy, it's The Clash. But then, like, as I push, it's, you know, currently it's a guy like Jeff Rosenstock. But I've said it a couple times. Like, I think what Steve did in those early Newsboys albums he was working on, and Squint in this, like, they really did, like, kind of put put me on this track. And I've said this on a show I got coming out, and I said it on when I was on the Everglow show with Eric McClanahan. But, like, I with so much music out there, and especially me, I listen to a lot of music because I try and listen to, like, every album on my calendar that when it comes up on its day. I don't get through them all, but, like, that's like over 2,000 albums. So I'm generally I try and listen to about 2,000 albums a year plus new music. So, like, I listen to a lot of music. It's made me into a bit of a vibe guy where I'm not always digging into the lyrics the way I once was. But what I have realized, if you're going to be one of my top 5 bands, you've got to have the lyrical chops. And I think that goes back to Steve Taylor. I think it's my connection to that Squint album and then this album. And I really think it has driven me to be like, you got to be saying something or you're not going to get into my upper echelon of music. Dude,
super well said. 100%.
I don't know if it was. And Bob Dylan. Thanks, Dad.
Steve Taylor, Bob Dylan, same thing.
Oh, will we ever climb? Blindsided every time. Just as I am needy and dry. Jesus is for losers, yourself. I'm so thirsty, take me to the waterfall.
That's it. That's our breakdown. Sorry, we went way long. Holy cow. I
Sorry,
knew
not
this is why
sorry.
I think we talked about maybe we should have a third person. And I was like,
That's
no
true.
way.
That's true. No way.
I think the two of us have way too much to say about this.
That's right.
It would have been a 2-hour
Chaos.
podcast. So that's our breakdown of Liver, again by Steve Taylor, released as best I can tell, according to Jesus Freak Hideout, May 23rd, 1995. If I have that wrong, I apologize, but that's where I got it from. Celebrating a 30-year anniversary. Scott, I know you're online. Obviously, this is a good time to pitch the other podcast we work on. So where can people find you online, and just give us the quick pitch for the other podcast that you host?
Sure, you and I clearly have history together, and that history is well documented.
Bad history.
Super sketchy. No, that history and others' history is documented in our other podcast called I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. You can find that on wherever your podcasts are being played. It is a podcast about people's journeys through youth group, how they grew up with, they're going to church or whatever that looked like in their youth, and then how that has extended into their adult lives. We always say we don't want any type of story per se. If it's super positive and you stay in the church, great. If it's negative and you've left, that's fine. We just want to know why. Because as you and I experienced, whether it is music or whether it is other teachings, it was always portrayed as this is life affirming. It's going to affect the rest of your life. Well, it's 30, 35 years later. Did it pan out? And that journey is very interesting to us. So I Survived Youth Group in the 90s is the podcast. You can always reach out to us at isurvivedyouthgroup@gmail.com.
Yeah, and if you enjoyed this conversation and you want to talk about your youth group experience, maybe your musical journey, if that was intertwined into your youth group, we have had a number of different things that people have wanted to talk about music. They wanted to talk about human videos. They've wanted to talk about philosophy. We had one recently. I mean, lots of different things. Or maybe that won't be out yet by the time we do this. Anyway, I don't know.
Close
We've
enough.
had tons of different people who kind of want to touch on different things. And the experience and the hearing the journey is the important part for us, I think.
Mm-hmm. Super fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks for signing up for this one. I knew we would have things to say. Yeah, I'm glad we got to cover it. 2 Steve Taylor shows. I don't think I have another one coming up for a while, so I'm glad I got to get 2 in this year.
Whatever your calendar says for 2028, I want to be on it for Squint. So just mark me down now.
Yeah. Okay. Let's support the show. You can hear us
So we
talk
can
about
go
Squint
for
in
3 more
2028.
years.
Let me tell you, at some point, if I'm not getting enough listens, I'm just gonna have to quit, people, and
Right.
then we'll just reconvene for that in 2028. I haven't put out a show in 2 years. We show up
Right.
and
Why not?
just
Throw out
use
that one.
Squint. Support the show. There you go. There's my pitch for support the show. All right. Thanks, Scott. It is like past 11 o'clock. Although you're just hitting your stride. I got to go to bed.
No, I got up early. I'm pretty tired right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. Well, I'll let you get to bed.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And also thank you for asking and allowing me to join you. It's been great.
Always. Anytime. Literally. You can join any music show you want.
Oh, I can?
You can. Actually,
Oh, you're gonna
I
regret
actually am not even joking about
You are
that.
going to regret that.
I mean, you still got to get on the schedule for him.
Fair enough.
Oh, man.
All right, man.
That's-
Good talk to you.
All right. Yep.
Bloody good wise. If you squint with a lie or the truth in your eyes, and I saw you, both hands were raised, and I saw your lips moving crazy, and I saw you steady your gaze for the finish line. Oh, every eye was like dust, a word scattered them all, and I rose to my feet when you scaled the last wall, and I gasped when I saw you fall in his arms at the finish line. At the finish line.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Album Anniversary Podcast. I want to say thanks again to Scott for joining me. It's always great to have him on the show. Love talking with him. Always fun to hang out and talk about music with him. Let us know what you thought. What do we get right? What do we get wrong? What are your favorites from this album? You can find me on all the social media. I am at Caleb the Spy. Pretty easy to find me. Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky on Patreon. I am also there. Again, it's totally free. That's the Album Anniversary Podcast. If you look for that, I do some exclusive content, some extra stuff. I swear after the summer, I'm going to try and do more. I'm just trying to keep up, to be honest, right now. But going to have more stuff coming that way, hopefully in the future. You can also reach me at killthespypodcast@gmail.com. Again, I have a running spreadsheet of all the shows I'm hoping to do in 2025, and probably will do the same for 2026. So if you're interested in being on the show, let me know. I'd love to connect. Love to find a show for you to be on to talk music with. That's how this show continues to go, is by having guests. Speaking of having guests on a show, the other show we do is, like we said at the end, I Survived Youth Group in the 90s. We threw it out there. Again, if you are interested in being on that show, we just want to talk with people about their youth group experience. So hit us up. Again, I think the email is isurvivedyouthgroup@gmail.com. We'd love to have you on the show to share your story about youth group and your youth group experience. All right. Thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
I don't believe it's the way you were raised, or the cards you were dealt, or a poor self-image. I think you love yourself too much. That's it. You want to rule some sovereign state. You want to smother and all that hate. Get away. Let out. Strip it off. And lose yourself.
Is it not working? Can you not hear me?
No, I'm good.
Oh, okay.
We've lost a step in our communication.
We recorded a podcast. Neither of us could hear each other. Let's see how it turns out.
It turned out great. Hope you enjoy it.
Can you imagine doing that? Oh, man. Literally 10 minutes ago, I thought, where did I get this date? And I was like, oh, I put it in the script. Good job, me.
I'm proud of you.
Yeah. Some of them are hard to find. Okay. All right. Well, that's our little bit of intro, and I think we both have plenty to say. So I say we dive in and tackle this album.
Okay.
All right. I didn't have anything else as an intro question, so there you go. And I don't want to ruin too much of the story about it. So
Yeah, that's fine.
all right. I'll go through facts. I will pause. You jump in and say things if you want to, or say,
Okay.
I don't have anything to say, dummy. Then I'll move on. All right. We're talking about Liver.
In Scott, jeez. 3, 2, 1.
There's a Bob Dylan quote in one of these things. I think it's talking about Jim Morrison's grave. He made, oh, no. That's Dylan Thomas. Never mind. I'm editing that out for sure. Woo, doggies.
Throw that on the outtakes.
That's in the outtakes for sure.
Yep.
All right. Seriously, any show you want to join. Just if you look at the calendar, you're like, Caleb, I want to be on this one. Because
I don't know why I didn't sign up for Fiverr, and they're so stupid.
Stupid.
Stupid Scott.
There's
You
got to be
idiot.
another. There's got to be another TV reference for that.
Probably.